Edward Keenan is senior editor at The Grid magazine. He has followed the mayoralty of and written extensively about Rob Ford. He joins me now with an assessment of yet another stunning week at City Hall. Thanks for joining us, Edward.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here.
Good. And you've covered the mayor for a long time.
Yeah.
Does it still surprise you to hear the things that we are hearing from the mayor?
It's hard because at this time it's almost like nothing would surprise you. But what continues to surprise me and everybody else, I think, is not even the type of things that we're hearing, but the way that we hear them. He can't. Often he doesn't talk to scrums. You know, these reporters stand around outside his office, they shout questions at him. Mm-hmm. But when he does, it seems like he can't resist saying something completely outrageous and turn the script completely on its head. I think, like, the details of the police investigation were maybe much more extreme than even those people who've been watching him for a long time expected they might be, the things his staff had to say. Mm-hmm. But they're the kind of things that we're used to seeing from the mayor. It's just the sort of the amount of them and the way we're learning about them that is surprising today.
Well, I just want to get your take on one of the more outrageous things that we heard from Rob Ford. This was on Thursday. It was something that left not only reporters, but I think pretty much anyone who saw it with their jaws on the floor. So I just want to show our viewers as well what that was.
Olivia Gondak, it says that I wanted to eat her Olivia Gondak. I've never said that in my life to her. I would never do that. I'm happily married. I've got more than enough to eat at home.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to apologize for my graphic remarks this morning. Yesterday I mentioned it was the second worst day of my life except for the death of my father. For the past 6 months, I have been under tremendous stress. The stress is largely of my own making.
So knowing what you know of Rob Ford, where do statements like that come from?
The original one?
Yeah, the first the jaw-dropping.
I mean, I think he just often opens his mouth and whatever is in his mind spills out. I mean, the first one is actually the kind of thing, it's very crude, and depending on the context, and I think in this context is certainly, disrespectful to a lot of people, to the situation, to his wife. It's the kind of thing that guys talking to each other in a bar, though, it might be a kind of a funny line, kind of clever, in a different sort of situation, right? Where you're talking about, like, why you wouldn't be lured into infidelity, right? And so I did hear from some people who thought it was kind of clever, but the situation, he's being asked about serious allegations about his competence, about sexual harassment in particular in the workplace. And this kind of vulgarity is actually how he operates. So those of us who'd been following the mayor for a long time were surprised during the campaign for mayor when we didn't hear more of these kinds of things, because he had a long history of sort of offensive comments and then apologizing for them later, or sometimes refusing to apologize for them later. But it seemed like his staff or his advisors had sort of managed to convince him to put a filter on. Instead of sort of speaking off the cuff, he would just constantly repeat like very carefully prepared remarks and repeat them again and again and again. And that's where things like subways, respect for taxpayers, like, it doesn't matter what the question is, he just says the same things again and again, because when he speaks off the cuff, the people closest to him are often shocked at what comes out, right?
We got a little bit of insight into that when the police investigative reports were made public, in that staffers had expressed these concerns to police anyway. So why is it so difficult for them? I mean, I guess they're able to put a filter on him for a little while or at certain points, but why is it so difficult for them or for anyone to, I guess, make him listen to what I would think is sometimes some pretty solid advice?
I don't think he's ever been the kind of guy to take advice from pretty much anyone. He certainly listens to his brother sometimes. He listens to his family. His family will hold meetings. Diane Ford, his mother, his older brother Randy, his brother Doug, they'll have family meetings and they plot strategy there. But outside of that, he almost never takes advice and almost never has. He's very independent, strong-willed, almost stubborn and belligerent in his refusal to take advice. And I think part of why he is that way is because it's always worked for him before, right? He was the lone wolf on council who would never, he lost all these votes 44-1, And as mayor, you know, now we've started to see his support really fall apart in the last few days. But up until now, through the crack scandal too, his sort of just refusing to take the best political advice that anybody would offer, which is, you know, address this head on and all of that. He just ignored it, pretended it would go away, sometimes openly lied, or at least strongly suggested that other people were lying when they were telling the truth, and he knew they were telling the truth. That was contrary to all the advice he was getting, and it's worked for him. A lot of his supporters traditionally have thought that that independent streak and that it's very obvious that he's not taking advice, that he's not doing the thing a politician is supposed to do in this situation, or saying the thing a politician is supposed to say. And a lot of people have traditionally interpreted that as like a kind of honesty or authenticity, that he's not a puppet for some political master who's telling him what to say.
I have one last question for you, and that is, I mean, in your latest column, the title of it is "Why the Mayor Shouldn't Be Forcibly Removed." Given everything you've just said, you would think that that would be something that you would support.
Well, I mean, I think that everybody in a democracy has to be very careful to respect the democratic process. And right now, we don't have a process in place that allows for the removal of a mayor, except in very specific circumstances. Now, he hasn't been charged with a crime. He hasn't been convicted and sentenced to jail. He hasn't missed 3 months of work. He hasn't been convicted, it hasn't held up on appeal that he's been convicted of a conflict of interest. And that's the process we have in place. But I think he was put in place by a vote of the people of Toronto, and I think that's how he has to be removed from office unless he violates the rules significantly as they were when we elected him. Now, just in closing, City Council has this week taken some moves to limit his powers, and that's well within their power to do. It's always been within their power to do, and I think that kind of thing is actually the kind of thing City Council should be trying to do, is like limit the harm he can do, vote no confidence in him, take away a lot of his authority, because those are powers that council has. But I think overturning the election result, like creating some new law to be able to remove him because we disapprove of his behavior, not because he's broken the rules as they are written, is a really dangerous place for us to start going.
Well, and we're not sure where we're going to go next, it seems, in this story.
That's for sure.
I appreciate your insight on this, Edward. Thank you.
Thanks very much for having me.